Welcome back to the Viking Update Show. It is Tuesday, March 5th. We are about a week away from probably facing some real deadlines and some real actions in free agency. And John, the rumor mill is going absolutely bonkers today. Florio's saying that Cousins wants to go to Atlanta. Honestly, if you go on the internet, everybody's saying that Cousins either wants to or will go to Atlanta, that Atlanta loves him. And I just think it's our job to remind people that if you were the Cousins camp and you were talking off the record to reporters, what would you tell them right now? You'd be telling them, we're going to Atlanta, because you're trying to get more money out of the Vikings. You're trying to get as much job security and as much guaranteed money out of the Vikings as you can right now. I can't guarantee you he's not going to Atlanta. He could sign with Atlanta 5 minutes after this show is recorded, but logic still dictates that the Vikings want him. The Vikings can pay him. He can stay here where he's comfortable. He can throw to Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison. He can put up huge numbers. Unless Atlanta's going to sign him to some like 6-year deal where he's guaranteed to be the starter the entire time, the Atlanta deal doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah, I mean, I really love the reporting that goes, I can't tell you how I know, but just trust me, I know. Like, yeah. you just believe me. You're right. Like, he all of this reporting could be right. But one thing is, it does seem like there is real steam to Cousins to Atlanta, and it's been coming from multiple sources. And so what we're trying to figure out right now, what we have to decipher is it legitimate steam? Is it really that case? Because there's even his wife is from Alpharetta and right near there. And so there's a lot of things, breadcrumbs that are being dropped of why it makes sense. The Falcons have a really good weapons for a quarterback as well. The division is more winnable there than it might be here if he stays with the Vikings, all of that. But yes, I don't think that we can fail to acknowledge that Kirk Cousins is one of the all-time best negotiators, one of the best players that has ever played the game in terms of leveraging his situation to get the best possible deal for himself. And that is absolutely his right to do it. And so we do have to kind of, I think, let the process play out, but it is certainly in the back of my mind that it is entirely possible that a lot of what you're seeing right now is pressure being put on the Cousins camp to get as much as they can from the Vikings. Cousins loves Kevin O'Connell. Cousins loves Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, Hawkinson. His family likes living here. So there are a lot of things going in the Vikings' favor, but everything except for maybe the possibility that the Atlanta Falcons want to just throw an obscene amount of money at him. And so that is what we have to wait and see, what's real and what's not there. But yes, I think that we are in the eye of the storm in terms of pressure being put on for negotiating purposes. And I am not ready to say that Cousins to Atlanta is absolutely going to happen, and that's even the most likely scenario here.
It is. If he leaves the Vikings, the Falcons do make the most sense for a lot of reasons. I'll just kind of throw the same. Well, let me introduce the show, then we'll get into some facts. This is the Viking Update Show. He's John Krawczynski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Souhan from Star Tribune. Brandon Morton is our longtime producer. Best way to listen to this show or any show at the network, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's free. It's the easiest way to listen. Also, highly recommend the John Krawczynski Show on the Timberwolves and the NBA. Great season to be listening to that show. That show is doing fantastic. So thanks for listening to that. Thanks to John for doing that. This is two veteran writers who've been around the Vikings for decades, talking about the Vikings, our experiences, our insights, through some of our, and sharing some insights from some of our connections. Want to thank Aquarius Home Services. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studios. Also want to let you know that John is taking a trip to Spain. A lot of Wolves fans, Vikings fans with the Defined Destinations. Go to definedestinations.com and check out that. And John will tell you more about that in a little bit. And thanks to everyone who listens. We do appreciate it. So the Vikings, unless the Vikings want to rebuild, and they've been avoiding doing that for a long time, what makes most sense is for them to overpay Cousins in their eyes, to give him enough money in the short term that he'll want to stay here, limit their guaranteed money on the back end of the deal, build in voidable years, whatever, so you can get out of it when they think the time is right. And the Vikings, if Cousins walks, they take a huge dead cap hit. If they keep him, if they sign him, even though they'll be paying him more money via salary, they actually avoid the dead cap hit, and they can structure the Cousins deal to help them get done deals with Hunter and Jefferson and Wanham and whomever else. They benefit so many ways if they bring Cousins back that, and I think Cousins knows, and Cousins is smart. Cousins knows all that. So Cousins is trying to get as much money in the first 2 years of the deal as possible. If they are not seeing eye to eye at this point, that doesn't mean a deal won't get done in the next week.
Yeah, it doesn't mean one. And like the other part that we have to factor in terms of what is going to drive these negotiations that I'm sure Kirk Cousins' camp is thinking about is that if they do not sign Cousins, chances are that next season is going to be another underwhelming one from a success standpoint. Whether you trade up and get a rookie quarterback, whether you go and get Justin Fields or Russell Wilson or whoever else, one of the reasons that it is real possible that Cousins is going to get a huge deal from Atlanta or somewhere else is that he is clearly the best quarterback available on the market right now. And so if the Vikings do not bring him back, there is a really good chance that they take a big step back in terms of competitiveness next season, which means that puts an unbelievable amount of pressure on Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, on this current regime, if they have 2 bad years in a row, that in terms of job security, in terms of the future of where they're going to go, all of those things. So there's a lot of pressure, I think, on the Vikings to have a solution that is both helps them in the short term to kind of right the ship a little bit off of last season and paves the way for something longer term. And the best scenario for them is to bring Cousins back and draft a quarterback in hopefully the first round and groom him for going forward. So the Cousins knows that the Vikings need him for competitive reasons as much as anything else. And that, again, kind of puts more pressure on the Vikings to maybe go beyond whatever line in the sand that they have drawn so far in these negotiations. I do think that the Vikings have made it clear that, hey, Kirk, there's only so far we're willing to go to bring you back. And maybe some of this right now is, are you sure about that? Like, are you really sure you're going to stick to whatever number, guarantees, those things are going, because I will walk. And that could be part of this right now too.
No doubt. We also have our companion show to this one, Jeff Diamond's Vikings and NFL Insiders, part of TalkNorth.com. Jeff, the former Vikings general manager, and he laid it out, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so. He said, listen, we're going to sign Cousins to a 2-year deal for $90 million with some flexible salary cap maneuvering within that, voidable years, whatever else. They're probably going to try to draft a quarterback, although it's not going to be as easy as just saying it. And if they sign Cousins to a deal, it'll actually clear some cap space for getting the Justin Jefferson deal done. The Jefferson deal getting done, believe it or not, actually they could clear more space to get Hunter, Wanham, and a free agent pass rusher. I mean, all these things are set up to happen this way. The real question is, what number does Cousins have in his head as okay, I'll take that. And what number does he have in his head as, okay, you're insulting me, I need to leave. $45 million a year for a guy, and this is where the debate gets fascinating with Vikings fans. $45 million a year for a very good quarterback who has played extremely well the last 2 years makes a lot of sense in the modern NFL. $45 million or more a year for a guy who's won one playoff game in his career doesn't make a lot of sense. It really just depends on which you prefer to lean on.
Yeah, and I do think like that is really invaluable sort of perspective from Jeff Diamond in terms of I think that the conventional wisdom out there, or the concern among Vikings fans who are lukewarm about bringing Cousins back, is he good enough to pay all this money to, and then have it compromise their ability to surround Cousins with the talents that he needs to be the best that he can be? We hear a lot right now about how important quarterbacks on their rookie deals are. So you can pay all these other people all this money. But I think that there are some people, certainly Vikings fans out there, who believe that if they pay Cousins 45 million, $40 million, that means that they're not going to be able to keep Hunter. They're not, that's going to affect Jefferson and Darisaw and all these others. When in fact, as Jeff points out, there are ways to structure this deal and then the subsequent deals that would actually make it easier for them to keep the talent around them and upgrade in some ways. And so I think that there's the confusion, or maybe the conflict that is going on in Viking fan circles is related to that. And so the question now to me becomes that the Vikings can do these things with Cousins, and it can open things up for them with the rest of their team. But will Cousins just look to it? Can Atlanta just give him, hey, here's 2 years and $110 million? Like, will they do that? And would that just be, look, I can't turn down this much money, this much of a difference? Because I do think that there is a ceiling that the Vikings have made clear to Cousins, whereas I don't think the Falcons and other teams have made it known that there's any ceiling. And so I think it would come down to just how egregious, aggressive, whatever you want to call a Falcons offer would be. And is that just going to be, in the end, too much for Cousins to pass up on? Because I do think that the Vikings will offer a competitive, robust contract that will certainly make Cousins all sorts of money and give them an opportunity to surround him with talent. And so it's going to come down to, does he want that? Does he want to stay here? Does he want stability that way and continuity that way? Or does he want gobs and gobs of money from Atlanta, and maybe realistically a better chance to win a division championship right now? That could factor into this as well.
Yeah, and I would, if you're trying to think like Cousins and prioritizing things, I think the biggest mistake you could make is thinking, oh, we'll go to Atlanta and everything will be easier. You just don't. The NFL changes year by year. I know that division looks easier right now, but you just can't predict. I mean, there's so many new playoff teams every year in the NFL, and the Lions look really good, and the Packers look really good, but there's no guarantee they stay healthy. There's no guarantee they fulfill their potential. We don't know how close the Bears are to winning. I mean, the Vikings dominated this division 2 years ago. It doesn't mean it's going to happen again, but they're not that far removed from being the best team in the division. So I just, if I'm an NFL player, the only way I go to a specific team is if I think they're ready to win a championship, not just because they're in an easier division.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I also do think, though, that the Vikings' ability to tell Kirk Cousins, hey, we got you in terms of with the roster, is a little bit compromised, right? Like, I mean, coming off of last season, you would say, yes, look, Kirk, we won 13-3. Did we get a little bit lucky with some of these close games? We did, but you have the talent around you. We will have another good draft. Everything's going to be going in the right direction. But I do think that the possibility that Kirk Cousins looks at the Vikings roster and the Vikings ability to contend is he feels maybe a little less confident in that right now than he did a year ago. Even though he could say to himself, hey, look, if I was playing and wasn't hurt, we'd have a heck of a lot more than 7 wins and we'd be in much better shape. So I do think that this season certainly did take some of the bloom off the rose for the Vikings. And I guess it doesn't mean, again, like it does not mean that it's over, that they're never going to get back into it. It could very well turn around quickly, but just given the way that it went, I think that there's room for doubt about their immediate ability to contend, which I'm sure is at the top of Kirk Cousins' wish list. And the Falcons, on the other hand, could say, hey, our quarterback situation last year was an absolute abomination. And we have Bijan Robinson, we have Drake London, we have Kyle Pitts, we have all these other guys. We have a pretty good defense, and we play in a crappy division. So if you come here, you're going to get a chance to be in the playoffs and take us. And so if he comes back to the Vikings, you feel good about the chances of getting to the playoffs. I actually think if he goes to Atlanta, you could say his chances of being in the playoffs are probably higher just immediately with Atlanta than with Minnesota.
Yeah, interesting. All right, let's get to some other quarterbacks, some other speculation going on because it is speculation season. We do want to thank Aquarius Home Services. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studios. Here's more on Aquarius Home Services.
Scott for Aquarius, wishing you a happy new year. And happy, how can we be only halfway through winter? Want some good news? Now is the time to replace your old furnace and AC with a new high-efficiency whole home heating and cooling system. Because at Aquarius, you can install it now and not pay a penny until next year. Visit AquariusHomeservices.com and schedule your free estimate today. Financing offers subject to available credit. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
I'd like John to tell us about his defined destinations trip.
Going to Spain, Madrid, and Barcelona at the end of August 22nd through 29th. It is going to be an unforgettable trip. And if you have listened to the Talk North Network, you know that Michael Russo and Anthony LaPanta have done some of these trips with defined destinations before. And this is my first time to give it a shot. So I want you to join me going to two of the most exotic cities in the world, Madrid and Barcelona, August 22nd through 29th. Go to defineddestinations.com and look for A Taste of Spain with John Krawczynski. We are going to go to two wonderful cities. We're going to have 4-star hotels in the heart of each city. We are going to have unbelievable meals. We're going to have sangria and tapas tours. We're going to go to unbelievable museums. We are going to see great sights. We are going to take a train between the two cities and we'll have guides to show us to all the best places in both cities. You're also going to have plenty of free time to go your own way, spend some time with loved ones that you bring, with friends, whoever. And so we can talk some sports. We can talk some Wolves and Vikings. We can just sit back and really enjoy what will be a fantastic trip. And we'll also have some time to do things on our own as well. So I would suggest going to definedestinations.com. And we're looking to get everyone signed up by May so we can get everything locked in. But the package includes airfare from Minneapolis, St. Paul, includes a lot of the services that we're going to get in both of those cities. And we're going to just go and have a great time. I cannot wait to do it. I hope you join me. definedestinations.com for A Taste of Spain with John Krawczynski.
So we are hearing some fallout from the combine. Jeff Dime talked about it on his show as well. Caleb Williams, wasn't a great look. He shows up just basically to do media stuff and shake a few hands and says he's not going to undergo a physical, which is, as Jeff pointed out, if you do one physical at the combine and your physical's done, now you're going to go visit 4 or 5 teams. Each one's going to want you to do a physical. It didn't really make a lot of sense. He seemed a little arrogant. Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't want to run. I don't know how much to care about this kind of stuff, but it is what has happened the most recently. And I will say this, Caleb Williams sends off some weird vibes. He sends off some vibes like, I've already made it. I'm already the man. And I'm just not sure that's the right way for a young quarterback who hasn't done anything in a very difficult league to carry himself.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I think that it's an extension of what sort of happened in his football season, right? I mean, he came in to last season dubbed the next big thing, just this sensation at quarterback who is going to put a franchise on his shoulders and carry it. And, some of the highlights that he's had, some of the performances that he had were just so jaw-dropping that it was like, this guy can't miss. But then this season at USC, he had a good season. He played well. He put up good numbers. But I think it was not what people expected it to be. And what you wonder is, has the adulation, the attention, the fame, has it gone to his head a little bit? I don't know. I have zero idea if it has or it hasn't, but those are the kinds of things that you start to wonder about. And then when he does this at the combine, I think I'm less concerned, about the combine stuff, because I do think it feels like we're at sort of a fork in the road moment for this, where, maybe some players are going to be taking things into their own hands a little bit more and just not allowing the NFL to dictate how they do things. But I only think that's going to work for the Marvin Harrisons and the Kalen Williamses of the world, and it's not going to work for other players. But there is a bit of a different element, I would just say, to how you evaluate Caleb Williams and some of the decisions and the way that things are going. So that should factor in a little bit to the decision-making process. I still think the Bears are going to take him number 1 overall. Maybe he's still going to just be an exceptional quarterback and terrific, but it's a couple of those things that crop up that make you just think a little bit about what we're seeing from Caleb Williams and how he's going to transition into the NFL when all the money is in his pocket, when he's doing commercials and he's headlining a franchise.
Agreed. Now let's play a little game here. This will be a recurring game until the draft happens. Which of the top 3 quarterback prospects, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, do you like the best? And which of the rest behind them do you like the best?
Yeah, so I think that right now, I'm very intrigued by Jaden Daniels in the top 3. And I don't know if that is just me trying to zag a little bit naturally, because you hear so much about Williams and May all season long, and they're the ironclad, first and second prospects. And maybe I just want to be a little different or not, but I do watch Jaden Daniels highlights. I watch, the LSU games that you're playing against in the SEC. I like the competition. And I'm just really, really enamored with what his possibilities are. Maybe he will have a little trouble staying healthy. I'm not sure. Maybe he isn't quite big enough. I'm not sure, but when he plays next season, I'm going to want to watch him just to see how it is. I'm really drawn to his style of play, the way that he does it. So right now he's my favorite. I don't know that I'd say he's going to be the best, but he's just my favorite of those top 3. With the next group, I'm a McCarthy guy. My dad and I grew up watching Michigan. So there's a little bit of a tie there. But I just like the makeup that he has. I always enjoyed watching the Wolverines play, and when they were down in games, and then it wasn't happening very often, but in the playoffs and everything, and watching the way that McCarthy walked up and down the sideline and just seemed like so sure that he was going to get done what needed to get done. I think that's special, and I think that he does have the chance to come in and be an incredible leader and turn into a franchise type quarterback. So he's my favorite of the next group right now.
I didn't expect us to agree. We agree. I like Jaden Daniels of the top 3. Drake May might end up being a very good quarterback. Every time I've watched him, whether regular season games, clips, film, whatever, he has so many throws that are just a little off, and somebody's got to make a great catch to help him out. I'm suspicious of people who look too much like a quarterback when that look doesn't necessarily translate into production. So he's my least favorite of those 3. I'm a little concerned about Caleb Williams' arrogance and whether he's going to really feel like he's a rookie who needs to learn everything, or whether he's going to think he's already got it figured out. Jaden Daniels, my God, his last 2 years at LSU, what did he have? 57 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions. Even better his last year than the previous year, still showing progress. Rushed for 1,134 yards, 8.5 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns last year with a long 85. He's 6'4", listed at 210. In other words, he's like 10 pounds away from being the quarterback you would build out of Legos or whatever, perfect size. And he's not, Bryce Young is tiny. He's just a
Right.
small guy. This guy's a big guy who needs to put on another 10 pounds of muscle, which I don't really have in store. So I'm with you. And as the second group, yeah, McCarthy, I've liked Penix for a long time. I think I might give McCarthy a slight edge over Penix in the second group.
Yeah, and part of that is like Penix has the injury history, so you wonder about that. But I mean, I think what I'm interested in, what I cannot say about that, like I saw in the playoff, Penix make some unbelievable throws, just down the field on a dime, incredible passes, and so I think his arm talent is incredible. We did not get to see McCarthy have to do those types of things as much because Michigan was so much more of a balanced offense, even more leaning toward the ground game with Jim Harbaugh. And so what I want to know is like, I think there's a real possibility that this is like McCarthy is similar to Karl Anthony Towns in a way, like Cat didn't shoot threes at Kentucky because Calipari didn't let him shoot threes. Like, it's like, hey, work on your post game, be bigger than everyone, stay in the paint, and then you can shoot later. And once he got to the NBA, you just started to realize like, oh my gosh, like this guy can shoot it in a way that we did not see in college. And I think that there's the potential that McCarthy can sling it. And we just didn't get to see it as often at Michigan. So I think in a pro style offense and in terms of the way that that he might be asked to run offenses in the NFL, especially if a team like the Vikings were to get him, I would be really excited to see what else he could show us that we did not see with the Wolverines.
Once again, we agree. Let's get to Josh McCown becoming the Vikings' new quarterbacks coach. Does this mean much to you?
I think it's cool. Like, is it going to change their fortunes? Probably not, but certainly the background that he has with Kevin O'Connell is compelling. I think that when you talk to people who know McCown, they speak just highly of his makeup, his leadership, all of those things. I think he was a kind of a pseudo candidate for Houston as the head coach a year or two ago. And so I think anytime you can bring in more minds that seem to really grasp the game at a high level and increase the brain power in your on your staff, you do it. They did it last year with Brian Flores. I think Josh McCown kind of is another just super smart football guy who seems to have a good feel for the locker room and a good way to lead. And I think he fits in really well with Kevin O'Connell's leadership style. So, at the end, if by some miracle the Vikings are hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, it won't be just because they hired Josh McCown, but certainly I just think that it helps to add another talented coach with a good feel for the game to that staff.
Good stuff, John. Hope you all listen to the John Krawczynski Show as well as this show. And if you like this show, you will also like Jeff Diamond's Vikings and NFL Insider. Again, a former Vikings general manager, still has connections with the team, has laid out the roadmap that he thinks the Vikings will follow this year. We'll see if Kirk Cousins agrees with that roadmap.